why Kaukauna is Kaukauna. I mean, explain to
Yeah.
the listeners. It's unique.
Um, yes, it's kind of hard to find somewhere to start because there's so much you could talk about with Kakana. Obviously, I can talk mostly about basketball. In my experience, I open enrolled to Kakana. I was actually going to go to Appleton West, but my mom was a teacher at Kakana. So I ended up,
Is she still there?
no,
Is your
she
mom?
she works in finance now. She does other things, but she taught there for a good amount of time. She stopped after my freshman year, I think. So my whole family is big on education. That's something we can talk about later at a different time. But big on education. Both my parents have multiple master's degrees and things like that. So I think I want to pursue the same thing. But that's a different conversation. Kakana is just an amazing city. I played basketball there. I played volleyball my freshman year. They have an amazing softball team. Their wrestling team is prolific. It's just there's so many good sports, and because of that, we have a lot of good support from the community. You know, there's fundraisers, fan support. Walking around, there's still people today that they'll see me and remember me from playing there, and that's because Kakana is such a close knit community. Everybody supports everybody, and we all come together to collectively hate Kimberly as well. So, so that works.
I mean, it's just you just gotta want it so bad.
Yeah, I
Talk
mean,
about that. Talk about that desire that you have to have if you want to be a success in athletics.
um, I played with Jordan McCabe, and Jordan McCabe is somebody who taught me what it means to be a Division I basketball player, but that ultimately helped me become a pro athlete. He told me you have to be delusional. You have to be delusional about it. You have to not only be delusional about knowing that you can make it, but also just about the amount of work you put in. So Jordan, I mean, he used to drive from Kaukauna to Appleton to pick me up at 4:30 in the morning so we can go work out before school. And then we work out before school, shower up, go to class. Then we come back after school. We have our team practice, and then we'll get more shots afterwards. In order to make it, like the guys at the professional level, not even professional level, collegiate level, these are elite athletes. These are elite players, whether it's basketball or any other sport. You can't accidentally make it. That doesn't happen. You know, and people like to say, some people get handouts or he shouldn't be there. If he's there and he's playing, he's supposed to be there. You can't like I said, you can't fall your way into a Division I scholarship in
There's
any
no
sport.
faking it.
There's no even Division III. If you're a collegiate athlete, and people will talk down on different levels, Division I, two, or three. If you're playing collegiate sports at any level, you're an elite athlete. A lot of people can't. People think they can wake up one day and I can go play at UW lacrosse because it's Division III. No, these guys are elite athletes. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
to get there, you have to know that you're going to compete against some of the best. I'm lucky, I'm blessed. God blessed me with athleticism, and I'm 6'6". But the work ethic, if you especially if you don't have the size, you don't have the genetics to be 6'6". If you're a 6'1" guard, you're considered small. You have to be better than everybody at everything, and people don't understand that. And that's something if you have a child or a grandson, a nephew, anybody who wants to be a athlete and they're going to take it serious, they have to be willing to put their sport above. I didn't go to prom, my junior prom. I didn't go to my junior prom and things like that. Like you have to be willing to put your sport above the things that normal kids, might want to do. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be normal. You don't want to be a normal kid. You don't want to go to school just to go to school. Obviously you want to get an education, but to be an athlete, you have to understand you don't get the same privileges that all the other kids get.
Let's talk about that journey into the D1 and talk about your steps because you had a very unusual, just like nowadays, everything's so different. Talk about that journey to D1.
Yeah, so I was a late bloomer. Going into my senior year, I was ranked like 36th in the state. Or going into my junior summer, 36th in the state, underranked, and I ended up committing to a Division II, Minnesota Duluth. Coach Wick, very good coach, very good guy. And so my whole senior year, I was committed to Division II, excited to go there, ready to play. But throughout the year, I was having a really good year, and I just felt that I couldn't let myself go without at least trying to get Division I, opportunities. I had some Division I interest after my last AAU summer, but nobody offered. So we ended up playing a big game. My last game, my senior year, we played against Jalen Johnson, and his team was super stacked. They had a bunch of high major Division I commits, and I played really well, and I ended up deciding that I wanted to take a chance at Division One. Decommitted from
Was
my
that
D
was that a
two.
high school? That was towards the end of your high school career?
That so my last game of my high school career. A month later is when I decommitted from the Division Two. So this would have been around end of March. It's probably end of March, early
What year
April,
was that? 2019?
2019. Yes, sir.
Okay. 2019. Just to put
So
everything together. And, and
yep,
and remind everybody, you were all state twice or once or
I
honorable mention.
was I was All State once. I got All State, first team All State. I don't. I want to say it was like unanimous first team all conference for sure. But I got All State and I got runner up AP State Player of the Year behind Jalen Johnson that year. So
Wow. Congratulations, man. That's big.
I was I was hoping I got it, but I didn't get it. So, you got to chalk that one up. But I had a really good year, and it led me to get some opportunities after decommitting. My first school was UMass Lowell. I graduated early, so I graduated I actually graduated right before the state tournament, and then so I was in school in May. So I was May 2019. I was in Massachusetts going to school. Wasn't playing much when I got there. I had some. My uncle had passed away, and that kind of hurt me, and so I took some time back. I left that school and I transferred to Boise State.
Like people to connect with you.
For sure. If you're looking to reach me, my phone number is 601-315-9009.
Say it again, please.
601-315-9009. And my email is Donovan Ivory 15 at iCloud.com. You spell my name DONOVAN IVORY 15 at iCloud.com.
Yeah, take it from there. You were starting that whole
Yeah.
journey. Let's continue that.
I mean, for me, it was just about finding the right opportunity. And I'm thankful for I transferred a few times. So I went to 4 Division I schools in over 5 years.
Is
My
that
first,
is
go
that
ahead.
normal, Don? Is that happening more and more now? Because I know
Now it now it is normal, but when I first transferred, it wasn't. So like when I first transferred, I had to sit out a full calendar year and not play because of the old transfer rules in
right.
2019. But now it's to a point where you can transfer and play right away. So I
How does that make excuse me, but how does that make you feel now that you've gone
yeah,
through that? You're pro. Talk about that feeling.
I actually my after my last year of school, I was gonna try and get another year to play in college. NIL, you want to stay. Now people want to stay in school,
Right.
but I was gonna try and stay in school and get that year back that I had to sit, but I got a really good opportunity to go overseas and play, so I took that. But I don't feel any type of way about it now. I used to be a little upset about it because I'm watching all these guys transfer and get to play when I had to lose a full year of eligibility because of it. I was able to stay in school 5 years because of the COVID. When COVID happened, everybody got that year back because they canceled a lot of games, a lot of seasons, and things like that. But back to the Division I thing, I think skill is a huge part of it. But I'll also say there's a lot of very skilled players who can't play collegiately because as much as it is about the skill, it's also about your mentality. And people don't understand it's not just about who's the best player. It's still a business. The NCAA and collegiate basketball is a business. And when you're in a business, you might be the best player, but if you're not the best person, or if you can't get along with coaches, if you're not coachable, if people don't like you, that could really mess up your whole career. I genuinely know some very, very talented players who don't play anymore because they could never get the mental side of it. Basketball is more than just putting the ball in the basket. It's grades, and it's also how you interact with people on a day to day. Your coach is most important. And also, if I could give advice to young players about coaches, if a coach contacts you, always, and I mean every single time, respond as if it were your favorite school calling. You know what I'm saying? Like I was getting recruited by Division I schools, so when a D3 schools hit me up, I knew personally I might not go there, but I would never throw away that relationship I could have with a coach because one, they might be able to help me out in the future, but also all these coaches know each other. Division I coaches know Division III coaches and vice versa. So if you're only being nice to the Division I coaches and you're being rude to the Division III coaches because you're like, I'm not going D3, those same D3 coaches might be the reason you don't go D1. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So the mental part of it and the stuff off the court worked hand in hand with being on the court, and I had to learn that through my time. So
All right, Donovan, European life. You get,
yeah.
how does it work? You're getting out of college. You must have an agent or something. How do you make the connections with these other squads across the world? I mean, how does that work? I have no idea. Can you enlighten our listeners, please?
Yeah, so I mean, first you got to have a pretty decent career. You know, you don't
Yeah.
have to have an amazing career. You don't have to average. I think my career average is like, or in college is like 9 points. My senior year, I averaged 13. I shot 40% from three. We ended up winning a conference championship. That helps. Winning helps. So if you're playing well on a winning team, that'll help. And an agent, agents for me, how it happened for me, agents will hit me up. You know, they might follow me on Instagram, DM me, get my number from somebody, call me. And when your agent hits you up, they're gonna talk to you. You know, they're gonna sell themselves to you. You know, I have connections in this market, in this market, in this market. Out of college, I ended up signing with an NBA agent. I wanted to go to the NBA. I ended up getting hurt, and it kind of stalled some things. But I think God had a different plan for me, and we ended up getting an amazing opportunity in Romania. So the coaches in Romania called my agent because overseas they scout a lot as well. Like these teams, they have GMs and they have people who are going to look at collegiate athletes and look at college, and so they know what's going on over here as well. Because a lot of guys come from college overseas.
Let me ask you though, because in the European leagues, because we have college D1, D2, D3,
Yep.
men and women, but in Europe they don't have that outlet. So I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that you, as a professional basketball player in Europe, you're like both. You're a pro and you're kind of like because it's entertainment for them. They don't have college. What I'm trying to say is they don't have
Yeah,
college
it's
basketball.
not entertainment though. Like the NBA is entertainment. The NBA is all about let's how we can sell the most tickets. Let's try and get as many points on the board. Don't call carries. Don't call every carry. Don't call every travel stuff like that because they want to sell tickets. They want to show. In Europe, it's more about the game of basketball. They're more passionate about. No, we're not here to. I don't want to see 120 points. I want to see 70 points, and I want to see a hard, good, close game that we win. They're very passionate about it. It's real. I think it's more real basketball. I love the NBA basketball. It's exciting. It's fast paced. It's fun to watch. But when you get to Europe and you see the environment that is there, it's like these fans are passionate about the win. They don't want to. They don't care about 15 dunks happening. They don't. They want to see real basketball
They
that
want to
we
see good
care what we're doing. Right.
about defense. I mean, because I have my opinion on defense in all sports, but
Yeah.
especially basketball. What about defense?
The ugly truth about defense is there's two. Defense takes nothing but effort. Like, you don't have to be a skilled basketball player to play defense, like, at all. There's some people who are not good offensive players, but will play for a long time because they know how to guard. And that's the other thing. Defense gets you paid. People say defense wins championships and stuff like that, which is true. If you're an average offensive player, but you play amazing defense, you will get paid. And whether that be in college or as a professional athlete, you will get paid because defense really does win. Defense wins games. They're going to put you, if you're the best defender, you're going to guard the best player and you're going to make the biggest impact on the game without even having to shoot if you don't want to, you know? So I think defense is something that's overlooked and a lot of people don't want to play defense. Nobody wants to play defense because you might get embarrassed. Somebody might break your ankles. You get dunked on or a big shot hit on you. You got to take the wins with the losses. But defense is. My dad told me that a long time ago. I used to get on the court not because I could score, because I could. It was because I was a defender and I used to rebound. But now, yeah, I'm a defensive player. I'm a shooter. I've had two, decent years, and I would like to play a little bit better. But defense definitely keeps me on the court. My rookie year overseas, they don't care who you are. You could come from a high major, but when you're overseas, they don't care because it's a different brand of basketball. If you either you can play here or you can't. Everyone's going to get an opportunity. But I had to tell my coach, if you're not going to play me offensively, put me in a game so I can play defense. I will make an impact on defense, and by doing that, I start guarding the best players, and all of a sudden now I'm getting more minutes on the court. So offense is coming to me. The ball is naturally going to find you. Now I'm making more shots, and I end up winning a championship. I won two championships my rookie year as a pro, and I'm super grateful for that. Being defense being the reason I'm getting more opportunities in these games. I don't know how to make that make sense.
So fans like over there, are the home fans, do they love you? And when you go on the road, are they like brutal? Is it
Yeah.
like the is
So
zone? The is zone will rake people, well, they'll rake
yeah,
players, coaches. We don't care. We're taking you out. I mean, is that how
yeah,
it is there?
yeah, kind of. So obviously, like, you get to Michigan State, and those higher schools, you have 20, 30,000 people there. I'm in EuroLeague. EuroLeague is the highest level in Europe. That's where you'll find that. Where I'm at, it's probably you'll get like 3 to 5 thousand there, but they're chanting, they're banging drums, they're screaming, they're whistling, they're yelling the whole game, and they are very much so. They're gonna cheer you on when you win. They're gonna, what I'm saying, get mad at you when you lose because it means something. For me personally, I have really good experiences with fans. I think I'm a pretty good people person. So I like to talk, and that's kind of what I do it for. I really love inspiring people. I love making people smile. My favorite part about overseas so far, I told you I have 2 championships, so I have a trophy and some medals and things like that. But I have about 4 or 5 drawings. Fans, they drew me, and they
Oh,
be
cool.
a little anywhere from little kids to older people. My favorite thing to do. I really love meeting new people, learning new languages. I know a little bit of Romanian now. I know a little bit of Polish, and just being able to throw a little Romania word in there when I'm talking to a fan, they get super excited, and shoot, I get excited when I know I said it right. So the
What about the
lifestyle is
food?
definitely,
How do you work your diet and your food over there
yeah,
nutritionally as a professional athlete? You're on your own, right? So you take care of
yeah,
your own, or do they have a
yeah.
training table, or how's that work?
So depending on where you go, some teams will provide you meals, 2 meals a day, depending on where you're at, maybe one meal a day. I got lucky. My team provided meals, but my first year, I was eating all the meals or I was eating out, finding food to eat. This last season, I cooked a lot. So I was making a lot of salmon and rice, real simple salmon and rice, chicken and rice, steak and rice, or salmon rice, mashed potatoes. Um, I'll make pastas. I just like to cook because you can kind of control more of what you're putting in your body. Like overseas, Europe, their food is better for you. Like they're not pumped full of dyes and preservatives and all this garbage that kind of messes your body up. Even like if you go to McDonald's in Europe, you'll taste it. It tastes different. Or Popeyes, it tastes different. It all tastes almost better. Honestly, you're
Right.
not going to see all these. You have a million choices. You go to the gas station here, you have a million choices for candy and chips and things like that. Granted, Europe does have some of them. They don't have 25% of what America has. So
That was wonderful. Donovan Ivory, a random meeting at the Y, and just seeing this young man, and you could tell that he was an athlete. Obviously, he's 6'6". I mean, not too difficult. Doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out a 6'6" guy with his look that he's a badass, and he is. Just a great guy, and I'm looking forward to meeting his parents and getting to know his brother. It's just because these good young people come from somewhere. They come from good stock. And what he was just telling me, we didn't record this during the show, but I'm going to relay this to you. It's hard, and just stay with it. He almost quit a couple of times. Yeah, he almost quit a couple of times. But now he's a professional athlete and he's getting paid a lot, and that's all good. Hashtag dad talk, hashtag girl dad. I'm Papa Tom. Thank you so much for listening, paying attention. And I want to thank Donovan again for being with us. And it was fun. We'll do it again soon. Until next time, everybody, I'm Papa Tom. Peace out. Love y'all. Go green.